Welcome to the Influence Experiment, where we seek to explore the art and the science of building influential capacity. Every month, we want to raise thought-provoking ideas of how you can be an investor of the influence you carry. If you're ready to journey with us, then it's time to experiment.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Influence Experiment as we continue to learn how to invest our influence well. Well, today we are talking about leading behavioral change. We all want to see the best behavior coming out of our teammates, friends, followers, family members, etc. But as much as we want to, we can't control someone else's attitude, actions, and habits. In leadership, the tension comes in trying to discern the line of where our responsibility ends and theirs begins. How do we coach those in our sphere of influence toward growth and behavioral excellence? What is the significance of asking the right questions and leading them toward their goals and values without spoon-feeding it to them? How do we live in empowerment over enablement, and how do we push people in their comfort zone, out of their comfort zone, to overcome barriers in their life? How do we obtain desirable outcomes of our people without being controlling? These are a lot of questions that we're going to answer today. And joining me is behavioral coach, change coach, Brittney Turpin. Brittney, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It has been a long time coming that I have said that I would love to have you as a podcast guest. And so thank you for being willing to do this today as we talk about a topic that you're really passionate about.
I am.
And so would you be able just to tell a little bit about yourself and kind of where did this passion and excitement around behavioral change came from for you?
Sure. So I am a wife and a mom of 5, and that means that I spent quite a few years being a stay-at-home mom. And during that time, I've always wanted to have a career, and I went down this path of health and fitness, and I lost 80 pounds in 8 months, and people were like, hey, how did you do that? And I suddenly, without really trying, kind of became a quote-unquote expert in the area of health and fitness. I would say far from expert, but it did make me pursue being certified as a personal trainer. I started to coach in that capacity. And then I would get really frustrated because it's really hard to make the changes that people want to see happen without changing their behaviors. Like, sure, you can go to the gym, but you're not going to get the results if you don't change the other behaviors in your life. So part of being a personal trainer is that you need to keep your education going. You need to get continuing education credits. So I really saw the value in becoming a certified behavior change specialist, which was one of the courses that was offered to me. So I dove in, and I just see the way that it's applicable to every aspect of life.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's so good. Mm-hmm. Well, as we begin to dive into this topic, I kind of want to start at like 30,000 foot and then bring us down question by question as we dialogue together. So at the 30,000 foot level, what is leading behavioral change? If you could give us a basic understanding foundation of it.
So behavior change is rooted in coaching versus consulting. Like, a consultant is someone who is an expert in their field, and they just kind of tell you what to do and you just go do it. Whereas coaching is really a partnership or a collaborative relationship that you have with someone, and it's where they help you arrive at your best solution. And so a coach will recognize and respect your autonomy and your locus of control, and they help you strengthen your internal motivation and your self-efficacy for change. So it's rooted in you versus me telling you what to do.
Sure.
And behavior change is also rooted in psychology. A lot of the concepts are, if you like psychology, you'd love to dive into this stuff. But behavior change is a hard thing. So people are only really ready to do it if they're like psychologically, like mentally ready to do it.
Yep.
So we use this thing called a trans-theoretical model of behavior change, and that sounds like a really big word, but it's really just stages of change. So at first you're in the pre-contemplation stage, and that's when you don't even recognize that there's any kind of a problem, or you're not even thinking of change. So that's pre-contemplation. And then you go into contemplation, and that's where you recognize that something is off. Maybe there's a gap between the behavior that you're displaying and your desired behavior, or a goal that you would like to accomplish. And you're just still in like exhibiting like some ambivalence around that change. You're kind of trying to weigh the pros and cons of, should I do this? Should I not? Maybe it's like, if I really have the salad, then I'm going to miss out on like cheesesteaks and French fries. And you're like, well, that's not worth it. So you're in the pre-contemplation stage.
Yep.
And then, so a behavior change coach is actually super helpful right in this time, because they are the person that comes in and helps you to, explore that ambivalence and say like, what's going on here? Why is this a desired change that you have? Like, you want to do this thing, but what is the thing that's like holding you back and keeping you over here? Yeah. And so the next stage that would come would be the preparation stage. And that's someone that's like right on the brink of change. And I like to think of it like as the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Okay.
We're all like, it's coming. I'm gonna do better. New year, new me. You're prepared. You're getting all of your ducks in the row. Maybe you went to the grocery store and prepped the fridge, and like you're about ready to take action. And you're committed and you're confident in your ability to do so. So that's the preparation stage. And then once you start, you're in the action stage, and that's when you are. You've made the change, you're committed, and you're excited about it, but it's still taking a lot of willpower and energy in order to sustain this stage. And that's where it can get, that's where a coach and some of these other techniques that we'll hear about later kind of come into play, because you are susceptible to like relapse at that point, where you go back to a different stage of the trans-theoretical behavior.
Right, the process.
Yeah, exactly. So once you've been in that action stage for a while, that's when people way smarter than me have determined that 6 months in, you move to the maintenance phase, and you're using less willpower at that point, and it becomes more of a habit, and you're able to sustain the change a little bit more. So our job is to recognize where you are in that process and to help coach you to the next stage of the model.
Yeah. So. No, that's super helpful. And I thank you for kind of sharing all of those different phases. And just for our understanding, can you just say was it 4 phases or 5 phases?
There's 5.
5. Can you say just the 5 in sequential order for us here?
Sure. It's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and then they add a 6th one, which is actually relapse, because we need to be prepared for what happens just in case. Or, I mean, it's I don't want to say it's inevitable, but we are human.
But it happens.
So, exactly.
And it's a intentional premeditation on how do I, again, not that we don't like to think in the worst case scenario thinking, but we need to prepare for what can happen when we face the obstacles in our life. No, I think that those are all, I can see those different types of steps happening, and again, small ways, even in my own life, or when I'm talking with a student, or I can see how they play out. But really what I heard from all of what you just said is that it is like someone who is a coach or a person who's willing to be a guide of sorts, not a demanding, domineering, but a guide. And then the other person who is willing to have some intentional forward movement and ownership in the process as well. And I think we, again, in small ways, we can all probably think about, I've seen that maybe pop up in my life potentially. And inevitably, we probably have seen some bad examples of it, whether our own life or someone else's. But we can probably start to identify that even as you have generalized this concept for us. So generally speaking, how do people hold themselves back from behavioral change?
Oh, yeah, that's good. I think it really comes down to our belief systems. I think both a person's locus of control and their self-efficacy, and those might seem like weird words, I don't know. But a locus of control is the amount of control that someone believes that they have in their own life.
Yep.
So you can have an internal locus of control, and that's where you believe that you have a great deal of control over your circumstances, and the outcome of your life will be influenced by your actions and your abilities. And someone with an external locus of control will believe that other people or obstacles or something else has more of an influence in their life in determining the outcome. And I find this the concept fascinating because it's not one or the other. You're not 100% internal or 100% external. It's more of a spectrum, and it's determined by things like your personality and your past experiences, and your family and your gender and things like that. So a lot of things can influence it.
Yeah, and to clarify, I had to think about this. It's not locust like a bug. Locus without the T.
Yes.
Perfect. Took me an extra second to,
Yeah.
again, I don't claim myself to be that smart of a person. So, but your unpacking of what is locus of control is helpful. And I think that in defining these terms at the beginning here is very helpful so that we can start to see how they play out within our own lives. Another thought that comes to mind is I've heard these string of words come together before, and I'd love to see if you can help make a little more sense of this for us. I've heard it said that your thoughts inform your actions, which informs your behaviors, which informs your habits, which informs your character. So it kind of compounds upon each other, from thoughts to actions to behaviors to habits to character. Would you be able to break this down for us, and how do you see this playing out in behavioral change and leading that?
Yeah, I love this concept. I think it's really neat. I think I've seen a lot of different quotes about this. They've been attributed to different people. Gandhi is one of them. We also see it in the Bible, which I think is where a lot of great quotes come from.
Yes.
If I'm being honest, I think they originate there.
A handful, yeah.
Yeah. But in Philippians 4, Paul tells us to fix our thoughts on things that are true, things that are honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. He tells us to think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And it's because when we fix, and right around that time, he's talking about don't worry about anything. So when we fix our thoughts on something, it determines and informs how we act. So if I was going to tell you to look around this room and pick out all the things that are blue, think about everything that is blue in this room, and then I tell you to close your eyes and tell me one yellow thing, you're going to be like, I didn't even pay attention to the yellow.
Yeah.
So then you can't perform the thing that, that's how it informs our actions.
Yeah, that's good. That's
because our focus was elsewhere, right? So the same is true in so many aspects of our life. And in behavior change coaching, we use a process called cognitive behavioral coaching, and it just helps you as a client or person to explore your feelings around something, or your thoughts, to explore your thoughts around something, and then your feelings, and subsequently the behaviors that occur because of them. So.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And again, I've heard that string of words kind of pieced together in many different ways as well. But I think it's super helpful to be able to take us to Scripture and to see that Paul, he does speak towards whatever is true, whatever is right, whatever is admirable. Think on such things, and the things that it begins with our thoughts of what we. I appreciate that example of finding blue things in the room, because how much our minds captivate our it sounds trivial to say, how much our minds captivate our minds, but like how much like we get in our head, like how so, and then how those then translate into how we act around other people, and then what we believe, and then what we're convicted about in our habits. And so I think that, I mean, that could be a whole nother podcast in of itself, is just the mind and how do we guard our mind? How do we think well in our mind? Getting out of our head, because we can really be in our head so often. And a behavioral coach identifying that so much of what they're doing and helping guide a person is not as much physical, but mental and spiritual. And so I think that is again a really huge piece of what we need to know if we're going to try to influence, again, not demand, not beat people's side of the head, but guide them towards maturing, guide them towards behavioral, positive moral behavior, character, or we would say Christ-filled behavior, that we need to understand comes from the mind as well as we go. Now, again, as we continue to talk about even what a coach can do, and I don't know why I'm personally gravitating towards the word guide right now, but what's the difference between enablement and empowerment from a coach's perspective?
So with behavior change, it's rooted in empowerment. We 100% focus on the fact that you're in control of the outcomes in your life. So there's no enabling happening in this context. If I'm enabling you, I'm not helping you, you know? So I can't make you do something, but I can explore your perceived barriers or your ambivalence to the desired change. And I can also help you to increase that internal motivation to help that change happen. So all of the coaching styles with behavior change is rooted in something called motivational interviewing, and it's recognizing that you know yourself best, and as soon as we both accept that, then we can head towards a change that needs to occur.
Would you be able to try to give an example of empowerment versus enablement by any chance? Because it is, I think it's such a fine line at times where even my motivation is like, oh, I want to empower you. But if I keep doing something for you over and over again, I may be enabling you, and I'm not, even though that's not my heart intent. So I don't know, would you be able to maybe give an example of how they can look practically?
I can give you an example in the lens that I have used within this scope of practice for me. So one of the things is I was a nutritional coach as well. And I would have clients text me and say, hey, I forgot my prepped lunch at home. I'm going to run out to Chick-fil-A. And do you think that I could just get a number one? Would that be okay? And I could give them all of the answers and say like, hey, your macros were set at, whatever it was, here's exactly what to order. Or I can empower them to be able to figure out the best thing to order. Like, hey, you can look at, here's the full picture of like what needs to happen. Here's the lines that you should be staying in between. Here's how you figure out what your macros are. And it's kind of like the concept of teach a man to fish. Like if
that's exactly what was coming to mind.
If I tell you all the things, then I'm always going to be telling you all of the things. But if I teach you how to do it for yourself, then you can go, and you can even go and make ripples elsewhere in life. And I think that's where the leadership aspect is so cool in this, as we have teams of people, and I'm not just saying, hey, Tony, let me make this copy for you so that I can, we can go on. And if I teach you how to do that, then, and I know copying was a bad example, but it was the first thing that came to my head.
It works. And I think that the whole idea of, I think that you just said it very well, of like, it's, you can give the person the answer, but why not give them the opportunity, whether they could see it as an annoyance that you're not giving the answer, but the opportunity to teach them how to do it, teach a man to fish, kind of a concept. And I think about it again all the time, but of how are we choosing as leaders, as coaches, as guides, how are we choosing to empower people? Because let's be honest, it's really easy to say, oh, let me do it. Or, oh, let me give you the answer. It's it's really easy to do it because we like things getting done quick, efficiently, or so on and so forth. And sometimes when we are when we are empowering people, it's a slower process because you're teaching them.
That is so true. I can choose to tell you what to eat for lunch every single day, or I can help you determine what is the best thing to hit your goals. Yeah, because I don't want to get a phone call every time you're at Chick-fil-A. I want you to be able to make that decision.
Yes, and I love that you keep saying Chick-fil-A because it's just...
Well, I know the way to your heart. So.
you know it well. And so I think that as our listeners are trying to grasp this concept, okay, then try to put it into your own space of, is there an area in your life where you have someone that you are guiding or someone you are leading, and are you, in good intention, are you maybe giving them just a little too much more frequently than not? And is there a way to say, hey, you know what, I want to teach you, I want to empower you, I want to give you the responsibility, I want to give you ownership, all these kind of like nice buzzwords, but it takes a lot to actually put them into practice. But maybe you're thinking, is there something that I need to do within, again, my sphere of influence, which is where we're trying to go within this conversation, because we don't want to enable. We want to empower. We want to allow that autonomy of the person to say, hey, I can make these decisions on my own. Are we still guiding them on the side or right next to them or from the audience or what? Sure, but we are choosing to give them space, which takes patience.
It takes patience, but that's where the growth happens for them and for us, really, too. So
absolutely.
So good.
So what would you say is kind of like the difference between growth-based decisions and comfort-based decisions? So kind of two different categories that we want to splice here: growth-based and comfort-based. And how do we empower these growth-based decisions?
Sure. Well, I think, I know you asked me the difference, but I think they're the same in that they're both hard.
Okay.
I think that it sounds like a comfort-based decision would be the easy answer, and I think that it is in the moment, but you end up paying for it later.
Okay.
Right? I'd go as far to say that sometimes, most of the time, we get to choose the challenges in our life, obviously, not the really hard life things.
Sure.
I don't want to be insensitive, but in the day-to-day, we get to choose our challenges. So if I am speaking in the realm of health and fitness, I saw it play out in ways of I can choose to do the hard thing and eat healthy and work out, which isn't always fun, and sometimes it's boring or hard. Or I can choose the hard thing by dealing with the lack of motivation or the brain fog that comes with eating junk, and the body aches and the health problems that come with lack of exercise. So either way, I'm making that choice. And either way, I'm dealing with the consequences of that choice, positive or negative. And I think that plays out into every area of our life. So we get to choose our hard. If we decide that we want to binge watch Netflix all day, like, what are we foregoing? That's the comfort decision. But maybe the growth decision would be if I have a goal in my leadership development, the growth decision would be to read a book or listen to a podcast or invest in my team or strategize in some kind of way. And that might feel hard in the moment, but in the long run, the benefits of that far outweigh the comfort decision of the sitting and binge watching Netflix. I do think that there's a time to watch Netflix.
There absolutely is a time, and I would fight you if you said that there wasn't. But okay, so this is good because you're saying that they're similar in the sense that they're both real time, like they're happening in the moment, and yet it really boils down to a word that you didn't necessarily say, but what I think I'm hearing is discipline.
Yes.
Is that in the moment you have a choice, real time, comfort based, growth based. What's my discipline? All the examples of what you just said. The ones that are putting in the heavy lifting usually are less desirable. Binge watching Netflix is usually most times more desirable. But how are we choosing playing the long game of our growth and encouraging others to think the long game as well? Because we really do like that temporary satisfaction, pleasure, joy, what feels good in the moment. We're human. It's kind of built into us to kind of like that kind of stuff. But at the same time, how are we putting the discipline upon ourselves to think growth-based, while also needing to validate? There are the moments of saying, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to go get that Chick-fil-A. It's okay to watch that Netflix. Like, it's okay to just to sit and enjoy and live in that moment in comfort. But just having the discernment of when is the right moment for
and that's actually what a coach would actually help do. So they help you understand your values and your behavior in these situations, and they do it through things like open-ended questions to get you, talking and thinking through things. So,
okay. Well, then take us there then. What would you say in the name of, again, coaching, guiding, leading someone, question asking is huge. It's paramount in the way that we get people to critically think and move forward. So what would you say some of the differences between a closed-ended question and an open-ended question?
Yeah. So very simple, a closed-ended question is just a simple yes or no answer. And an open-ended question is something that you have to articulate. So if I was going to ask you, did you work out this week? You have the opportunity to just stop right there and say nope.
Or I could say yes.
Yes.
To make you think I'm
exactly. Exactly.
Right. Perfect.
But if I wanted to ask you an open-ended question, I would say something like, what was your experience with your workouts this week? And then I get insight on, because your answer can't just be yes or no, you have to give me more of the things that you went through, your challenges, your successes, all of that. And I can then use like reflective listening and active listening, and I can say to you, I can extract that information and use it like a strengths-based approach to help build your internal motivation for success in the future.
Well, and I think it also compounds the ability to just ask more questions where yes and no answers, it's kind of like a brick wall.
Absolutely. You're like, okay.
Versus open-ended questions can have more of this, like you enter onto this like highway of other questions that you could deviate off of. Now, within the coaching realm, it's knowing how to do that and knowing how to ask the right questions. And to be completely honest, I've just many times I've just Google searched how to ask open-ended questions well, because it is an art. It is it's sometimes not as easy as like, oh, just go ask open-ended questions. Okay, great. How do I do that? And so if you're wondering like, hey, how do I ask open-ended questions? Honestly, Google is a great resource for you to be able to say, here's a list of 50 different open-ended questions, and here's the tacticals on how to do it well. That is again another podcast in and of itself of how to do that in that active listening space. So thanks for being able to speak into that. And as I just a moment ago mentioned about the art of listening and asking questions, the influence experiment itself is all about finding the art and science of building influential capacity. When we think about leading behavioral change, what would you say is some of the science, which is some of the objective truth behind it, and then some of the art, which is subjective, individual, personal expression in leading behavioral change? How would you speak to that?
Yeah, so I think the science is really just rooted in psychology. I think that people way smarter than me can speak into the science of it, but I think the art comes in those things that you were talking about with active listening. One of the things that we are there's a bunch of core competencies when you become certified in anything really, but some of them for behavior change coaching is things like building rapport and emotional intelligence. Like we go through the 4 domains of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness. So the ability to perceive your own emotions in yourself and even in others accurately. There's self-management, which is the ability to use the emotions to help facilitate your thinking. And then there's social awareness, which is just being attuned to other people's needs and feelings. And then relationship management, which is the ability to manage your emotions to attain a specific goal. So I think that all of those those kinds of things, the active listening, the reflective listening, the open-ended questions, the emotional intelligence, rapport building, that all of that is such an art, because it is something that it can be built, it can be mastered, and I find it also fascinating. I really do.
Oh, I mean, honestly, as you're talking, it's kind of getting me like nerdily excited over like wanting to like learn more about those 4 domains, because again, the idea of relational management and social awareness and self, like they're so good. It's rich. And again, I want to hold myself back from getting like super nerdily like want to diving into these, but it drives the point I think we're trying to make is that like in this, it is an intentional art. It's something that a coach and an individual has to say, I'm in this to learn about myself. The coach, I'm learning about myself, and I'm also trying to learn about the other person. Yeah. And the individual say, I'm learning about myself, and I'm also trying to learn from and about my coach or my guide and or my leader, boss, fill in the blank. And it's an intentional process. It's as I said earlier, it's a long game. It's not a short game thing. And we do like those immediate results, us Americans do. And I think that this kind of butts up against that, but I think in a healthy way. Yeah. And so I think that this is really good to lean more into some of that, understanding some of the science as we have the cognitive capacity to be able to do it. But then some of the art really is just how am I doing this self-awareness exploration and just having, dare I say, even having some fun with it, of learning about people and not even in a coach way, just in a relational way. Yeah. We're built to be relational beings, just to get to know people and active listening questions and being invested in people's lives. I think it can be really fun. It doesn't have to be this like regimented, robotic nature. It's not meant to be. Leadership is not meant to be either. And if someone would walk away from this podcast and hear like, oh, like this is a very systematized thing, and if I do this, it's going to pan out perfectly at the end of the thing. Heck no. No way. No. Because like people are messy. We're messy. And we have to be willing to lean into the mess of it all. And it takes a lot of work. Yeah. But it's so good though. Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop talking about this. I won't shut up. But what would you say? What are some ways that we can help someone, be it a family member, a teammate, a friend, identify particular barriers in their life that they need to maybe overcome, whether they see it or not? Again, our viewpoint is still subjective. We can still be wrong. But if we say we could see some barriers in our life, how do we help them identify it? Yeah.
So I think that I tend to couple the word barriers with the word perceived. I, for some reason, always say perceived barriers. Yeah. And I think in my mind, I think that if I say perceived barriers, it opens up the other person's mind to say, like, this is something that we can overcome. That's my hope anyway. So I just don't want it ever to be like this thick cement wall. I want people to know that a lot of times there's a way around these things. So I think that open-ended questions are really come into play here. I start with things like, have you ever been successful like doing this kind of thing in the past? Like, what was your experience with working out or whatever the desired change is, and then just kind of listening to what it was, and then seeing if there was there a reason that you stopped this behavior, and just having conversation like that and finding out like what was the thing that made the behavior that has happened in the past stop, or if they've never done it before, just kind of getting in their head about what is the reason you've never taken this step? What makes you think that you wouldn't be successful at it, or why haven't you taken the first step? So I think that recognizing that our lives are so complex, just knowing the skill of, choosing the right foods to eat or healthy living or whatever it is, like it's not enough to just know the skill. We all have these influences coming at us from all directions, and only your specific influences. Like, that Tuesdays at staff meeting, it might derail you because there's some, muffins on the table or whatever it
Love me
is.
some muffins.
Yeah, the other influences in your life. Say your grandmother's Italian and she's always making pasta for you, and you can't let her down. So there's like cultural, influences, there's work influences, there's all kinds of things going on. So our lives are so complex. That's why when I recognize that you are the expert in your life and that because ultimately you're the one that's going to be leading this change, right? I'm just a guide here helping you get to that scenario. So as soon as we recognize that, we can help spur people along to that desired change.
I think that you sparked a thought in me when you said cultural, is the fact that like there are so many different like onion layers to peel back of someone's intention, someone's desires, someone's fear, shame, like all these different things that are wrapped up in people's minds that maybe hold them back from behavioral change, habit change, and so on and so forth. And to know that the culture in which we grow up in, our home, the state that we live in, the country that we're in, to the team in which we're currently, like, it's subcultures all over the place that play into potential barriers. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole you could go down and trying to, how do you parse those out and how do you identify them? But again, as a guide, you have to be helping them be aware of all those different subcultures that are within their life. And I think that is something that, even as you said, perceived barrier is a really helpful way to frame it. I almost take it from two different angles of like where you were mentioning it from the angle of it is someone, so you can help someone see this isn't a cement wall, as you said. There's possibility you can get through it, but then also the perceived of like, hey, like I could be wrong. Yeah. And kind of has like crazy idea that we could be wrong in an opinion or thought. So I could see it as like it goes both ways of a perceived barrier, because you do want to leave that space for them to say, like, after you do sit with them and process with them, that your insight could have been a little off. And again, not for bad reasons per se, just say at the end of the day, the person knows themselves, hopefully, the best. And that we're just trying to set that table for healthy and wise, Jesus-honoring decisions. So no, that's really, really good. Why would you say is it important to draw out of others what they already know, and how do you do that exactly?
I think that it is, I guess it's a lot of what we talked about, like you are the expert on your life. And I think deep down, you know the right thing to do, or at least the general direction of it. There's a reason that you decided, hey, this is a behavior that I want to change. So you know that core motivation, and that we need to get down to that, to the why behind what we're doing, because we have to go back to that so often when it gets really hard. And I think that one of the ways that we can help draw these kinds of things out is through they use an acronym called ORAS. ORAS, and it's open-ended questions, which we've talked a lot about, and then affirmations, which is something that is so crucial to behavior change because it's rooted in psychology, and not just psychology, but positive psychology. So it's definitely a strengths-based coaching style. You're really only going to find the motivation to do it if it is positive. So we really focus on those like affirmation kind of things. And then R is for reflective listening. We touched on that a little bit, but it's all the things, listening with not only your ears, but tuning into that emotional intelligence, your body language, everything is saying something. Everything that we're doing is saying something. So even if someone misses a check-in or something like that, like you can use that as a portion of reflective listening, like what's really going on here that, is leading them to do that. And then summarizing is S. So you take everything that you've heard from somebody and you repeat it back to them. And that gives me the opportunity to, one, make sure that I understand fully what you're saying, but also the opportunity for you to hear what you're saying. So when it comes out of somebody else's mouth, you're kind of like, well, I don't really know if I meant it like that, or I see how that could be. So you actually have value. You get value when I use a summarizing technique too.
Yeah. Okay, so let me summarize what I think I heard you say with OARS. OARS.
Yes.
O is open-ended questions. A is affirmations.
Yep.
R is reflective listening. And S is summarization.
Yes.
Fantastic. I've never heard that before.
No?
I really like that.
Yeah.
I'm totally going to steal it now. That's
You
so good.
absolutely can. I didn't come up with it, so.
Well, great. I think it's so good. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
And it's part of the idea of helping people see what they already know. I remember when it was years ago, I was sitting in a Bible study, and someone had mentioned something about the passage of scripture that we were studying, and they made the comment, and then we moved on. Well, like 5 minutes later, I couldn't get my mind off of that comment, and I just said to our whole group, I was like, man, like, it's wild how long it takes us to learn things we think we already know. And I couldn't get, and I was like, can we just go back to that comment for a second? And so what I know, again, I'm speaking for myself, like the reason why I know that it's helpful for me to have a boss or a coach or a friend or a spouse keep drawing out what I already know is because I am quick to forget.
Oh yeah.
Or I'm quick to think I know it, and I graduate from the idea, and I'm like, no, I need to keep reminding myself of it every single day, whether it is a truth of the gospel, whether it's a truth of who God's wired me to be as a leader, or something that doesn't define me, that's tempted to define me, and so many different things. That when you remind yourselves of daily, going back to the whole cognitive headspace. Exactly. Oh my goodness, so rich and so neat to continue to process over. But using, again, from a guide perspective, OARS I think is a really phenomenal tool to be able to use.
Yeah.
So what would you say is some of the importance of helping identify their values and their goals specifically? So kind of getting to the roots of things, their values and their goals. What's the importance of highlighting those things?
Yeah. I truly believe that our values are the thing that drive our behavior. And our behavior is the thing that gets us to our goals, right? So a coach should be the one that's helping you to explore those values, and they kind of help set the stage for what your life can look like if you chose to act in congruency with this behavior change. So they do a thing called visioning, and it's where you get down to your values and really picturing what your life could look like if you made the behavior change. And vision is the thing that drives transformation. I am very passionate about that in all aspects, especially in business. But I think that understanding your values and your goals is the thing that helps drive that kind of stuff. So,
I think that having values, personally, as a leadership development person, that I love to see when someone can come back to their why. Of why are you not just a task that's happening, but literally the core of your passion. Why are you doing that? There is a why. You just maybe haven't had the time to sit and sift through it and be able to articulate what is the why. So I would very much so say, if you're listening and you don't have maybe some personal life values that you have, maybe to be able to build or articulate that is a really neat exercise to sit down with. Here's what I'm passionate about. Okay, well, why am I passionate about it? And kind of drill down to these irreducible minimum words of what's something I value within my own life, and that really does help to set the trajectory of goals. In coming back to that, where a scripture reference that's in Proverbs that says that where there is no vision, the people fail, the people mess up, the people flounder, whatever the word may be. But knowing that there's a deep need for vision to keep us focused and centered in the right space moving forward.
It helps us to determine the next steps to take if we're unsure. I just think that vision is so important in so many aspects of life that also could be another podcast. I could talk forever on that.
Well, I may have to have you back on sometime in the future for talking about vision. Yeah. Well, hey, as we begin to land the plane of this whole conversation of leading behavioral change, do you have any practical tips on goal setting, working smarter, not harder, behavioral life hacks even around behavioral change?
Yeah. I love goals. I love visioning. I love all of that. And I am a firm believer in being very specific with your goals. I think that when you are specific with them, it leaves less room for you to make excuses later. So when I had health clients, I would make them or have them go through exercises like developing SMART goals. So instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, they would say, my goal is to lose 10 pounds by April 15th by sticking to my macros and completing my assigned workouts with 100% effort.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
In that, I know that I'm working out 3 days a week because that's my assignment. Like, those are my assigned workouts. I know exactly what I'm eating because it's right there. I know that there's an end date to it, so SMART goals are specific, measurable, actionable, SMA, relevant, and time-bound. Sorry.
I wouldn't have been able to help you on that stuff. I've heard it multiple times. I just have never been able to have it memorized.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's I think that things like that, putting that into practice is so good because it sets you on that path and you know the next step to take. And because we are human and it's so easy to go towards those comfort decisions versus the growth-based decisions. And anytime that we leave a little bit of wiggle room for that comfort-based decision, we're going to take it. Yeah. It's the path of least resistance.
For sure.
So, yeah.
No, I think that's a contemplative phrase to use right there, the path of least resistance, that we do like. We like that comfort. We like that non-resistance mentality. But that is not, more times than not, that's not growth. That's not what we're looking to do within how we are developing our own selves as leaders and influencers, and then the people around us, stirring our family members, stirring our teammates towards that positive growth, to the godly growth.
Yeah.
Once more, though, just for me and for our listeners, give the SMART one more time. I think that is a practical tool for people to be able to kind of think through, how do I move forward in leading my own behavioral change, to helping other people. So what's the SMART again?
Okay, I hope I get this right. It's specific. So you want to have a specific goal. It's measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
That's good. That's very good. I think that the R is relevant, right?
Yes.
And I think that we creating goals that I'm the optimist, and sometimes I can think of goals that are like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna crazily do this goal, and then my wife, sweet Mary Beth, she's like, is it really that obtainable? Is it really that relevant? Are you really gonna be able to do it? And of course, in my mind, I'm like, no, she's just popping my balloon but no, she's being realistic, and she's helping me realize what is an actual realistic goal that you can come up with and move forward in. So I just think that is from an optimistic perspective. Sometimes I can get annoyed at it, but I know how deeply needed it actually.
Yes, absolutely.
Much it actually is. And Brittney, as we finish here, any final words of wisdom, insight, advice, caution, maybe, that you would give to our listeners as we end?
Yeah, I would say if you are thinking about going on a journey towards behavior change, to find a friend to go with you and be kind of picky in choosing that friend. I think it's wise to pick somebody that is going to ask the hard questions and kind of shoot you straight a little, but also remain really positive and affirming and keep you on the path towards betterment and not discourage you. Yeah. So that actually sounds like a unicorn of a person, but they're out there. I know it.
They are. But to have someone with you, I know that again. We have talked a bit about how this is. There should be some autonomy in how I'm living this and doing this, and intentionally, again, not being spoon fed. I'm not being enabled. But there, absolutely, the other side of the coin is you got to do it in community. You have to do it with someone that, just like you said, the unicorn that's out there that you trust and that's going to speak facts, speak truth to you, even if it's uncomfortable. Because again, we're not going for comfort; we're going for growth.
Exactly.
And so, no, that's really good. Brittney, thank you so much. My goodness, we've covered so much ground, and again, other things that we could go on to other topics in the future about, but to kind of park it here for now, and to just say thank you. Thank you for being willing to speak towards something that you value and that you're passionate about and want other people just to get it, even if it's just 1% more to get it. And to say, I'm going to take this step towards leading my people well, or leading myself well as I go towards behavioral character change. So thank you for modeling it yourself, as I get to be the privilege of being a coworker with you, and it's really, really neat. Truly, to watch you model excellence, model open-ended questions, empowering others. You be affirmed. You do it well, friend. So
Thank you so much. That was so nice. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Well, if you are enjoying what you're listening to, you're liking what you're hearing, would you be willing to go and hit the share button, give us a rating wherever you consume the content? And we hope that you'll join us next time as we continue to explore the art and science of building influential capacity. Catch you next time.